Hey guys, tonight we voyage into stormy seas, snake-infested forests, and diamond-studded caves. Yep, you guessed it. It's time to relive the fifth voyage of Sinbad. You're back once again, despite every reasonable warning your past selves screamed during the last 4 voyages. You just can't help it. The sea calls. Adventure whispers. And maybe your wallet is getting a little too light. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love hearing about our little nighttime crew across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You'd think 4 near-death voyages would be enough for a lifetime. But no. You, our indefatigable Sinbad, are back on your feet in Baghdad, with a goblet of wine in one hand and a dangerous glint in your eye. The riches from your last misadventure have thinned, replaced by that itchy feeling in your bones, the urge to go back out there. Call it wanderlust, or, more accurately, memory loss. So, what do? You outfit another ship. Not just any ship, this time. You pick one with reinforced hulls, extra sails, and a crew that looks like they've all survived at least one mutiny. You fill the hold with goods, silks from Damascus, sandalwood from India, and, why not, a few crates of dried figs because pirates rarely steal those. You're feeling prepared, which, of course, is when the universe starts laughing. The journey begins smoothly. The sky is clear, the sea is calm, and your crew is singing shanties with questionable lyrics. You make port at a few small cities, trade goods for pearls and spices, and even pick up a monkey who immediately takes a liking to your hat. Life, as they say, is suspiciously good. But as you drift farther from familiar waters, the winds shift. One morning, just as you're sipping date juice and explaining basic economics to the monkey, dark clouds muscle their way over the horizon. The crew grows quiet. Then comes the wind, sharp and sudden, like an angry librarian shushing the whole ocean. Within hours, your calm voyage transforms into chaos. Here's a fun historical note to distract you. Ancient Arab sailors, including those of Sinbad's time, were masters of celestial navigation. They used a device called a kamal, a simple wooden card on a string, to measure the angle of stars. Clever, right? Unfortunately, celestial tricks don't work so well when the sky is black and rain stings like jellyfish slaps. The storm barrels into your ship. Sails rip, crates tumble. You think you hear the monkey screaming, "I told you so," but it's hard to be sure over the crashing thunder. The ship doesn't just rock, it thrashes, like a fish fighting a hook. You bark orders, but the wind eats your words. One moment, you're gripping the helm, and the next, the world goes sideways. Then, impact. A crack. A jolt. A shudder so deep it feels like your ribs might fall out. You've struck something, or something struck you. Either way, the deck tilts sharply, and your crew tumbles like spilled marbles. You hit the railing hard, your monkey flying past your ear like a little hairy comet. Everything goes dark. When you wake, your hands are bound and the sun is far too bright. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, you're tied up, lying on the deck of a very different ship. Around you, unfamiliar sailors speak in harsh tones and laugh with the kind of joy only pirates seem to master. You try to sit up. A boot, gently, but firmly, presses you back down. Now, pirates weren't always the parrot-wearing, eye-patch-bearing hooligans of cartoons. In the Indian Ocean, they were often former sailors, smugglers, or mercenaries, many of whom turned to piracy when legitimate trade failed. That said, They weren't known for their hospitality or dental hygiene. Your captors waste no time. You and the rest of your surviving crew, those who didn't drown or get flung into the storm, are sorted, priced, and auctioned like cattle. A young man beside you cries when a merchant touches his teeth. You try not to think about it, but then the bidding begins, and your name is shouted out loud like a prize to be won. You're sold quickly to an old man with a beard like tangled ropes and eyes that seem too still. His voice is soft, his hands are steady. He even offers you a date fruit. Compared to the pirates, this feels like an upgrade. But then he leads you inland, away from the coast, past a forest of trees so thick the sunlight barely trickles in. And the unease settles in your stomach, heavy and slow. You're taken to a stone compound near the base of a jagged cliff. It smells like wet wood and something faintly metallic. The old man smiles often. He gives you a room, food, water. There are others here, too. Quiet, listless people who barely meet your gaze. A young woman mutters numbers under her breath. A boy stares at the ceiling, unmoving. The trees near the compound bear strange fruit. Enormous, golden-brown pods that seem to sway even when there's no wind. One night, unable to sleep, you creep out to examine one. It's sticky, heavy, and split at the center like a cracked melon. You lean in closer. Then you hear it, a hiss, deep, guttural, ancient. That's when you see the shed skin, 30 feet long, still fresh. Welcome to your new job, bait. You're not exactly sure when it clicks. Maybe it's the moment you see that second skin, still damp from being peeled off by something thick and muscled and not vegetarian. Or maybe it's when you spot a half-buried femur beside one of the fruit trees and realize that it's a little too human. Either way, your stomach drops in that special way it does when you discover you're on the wrong side of the food chain. The old man, your new owner, apparently, still acts like everything is normal. Every morning he offers fruit, pours water, and hums a haunting melody under his breath that sounds like a lullaby for nightmares. He gives you tasks. Sweep the compound, tend to the garden, avoid the trees. You notice he never, ever gets close to them himself. The others, the quiet ones, they don't talk. They barely move. You're not sure if it's fear or something else. Resignation, maybe. Like their hope evaporated long ago. You try to speak to them anyway. One man whispers. The serpent watches, and then turns his face to the wall for the rest of the day. Let's pause here for one of history's curious footnotes. Many ancient cultures believed snakes were gatekeepers between the realms of the living and the dead. The Mesopotamians, your cultural neighbors, saw them as both symbols of fertility and chaos. Conveniently, this particular snake, all chaos, zero fertility. You begin noticing patterns. Every few days, someone disappears. No screams, no struggle, just gone. One day, you wake up and the boy who used to mutter numbers is no longer in his corner. No explanation, no questions asked. The others don't even blink. Eventually, the old man takes you for a walk. He says nothing as he leads you down a twisting trail through the forest. The trees are enormous now, looming overhead like gossiping giants. The ground is soft, covered in moss, and something that smells disturbingly like burnt hair. Finally, he stops at a clearing. There's a circle of stone slabs, 8 of them, evenly spaced, stained with streaks of something too dark to be wine. In the center, a single wooden post. Chains dangle from it like limp arms. You look at him. He looks at you. He smiles, and you realize this is where they tie you up, and this is where the serpent comes. Now here's a scholarly debate to chew on while your heart pounds. Some historians argue that the fifth voyage reflects not just a fictional tale of survival, but a metaphor for slavery and colonial exploitation, especially through the lens of consumption of human bodies, by monsters, by systems, by greed. Others say, it's just a good, scary story. Back in your cell, you hatch a plan. Because unlike the others, your bones still hum with stubbornness. You refuse to be serpent kibble. You remember a tree near the compound that's grown low and crooked, perfect for climbing. You test it at night. You start hiding bits of food. You stash a sharp rock under your mat. And then, one morning, a guard comes to take you. Not the old man this time. He rarely handles the dirty work himself. This one's younger, but just as quiet. He beckons you toward the trees. You go, but not to the circle. Instead, the moment he looks away, you bolt. Let's be clear, you're not a fast man. You've been living on mystery fruit and fear for weeks. But adrenaline's a marvelous thing, and in a burst of wild, graceless energy, you hurl yourself at the crooked tree. It groans beneath your weight. A branch snaps. You grab another. The guard shouts. Somewhere nearby, something hisses. Again, you pull yourself up. Breath ragged, heart hammering. You wedge yourself between two limbs, just out of reach, and you wait. For hours, the forest changes as the sun sinks. The shadows thicken. The trees stop swaying. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. And then, just past twilight, you hear it. A low, dragging sound. Something massive, sliding through brush. Leaves part. The forest seems to tilt around it. The guard, standing below, freezes. And that's when the serpent enters. Let's talk about snakes again for a moment, just to keep the mood festive. The ancient Greeks recorded tales of sea serpents that dragged ships under. The Babylonians worshipped Tiamat, a dragon serpent goddess of chaos, and in medieval bestiaries, giant snakes were believed to hypnotize prey with their eyes before swallowing them whole. None of those would be as terrifying as what you see now. It's at least 20 feet long, its head the size of a lion's, with scales that shimmer dark green in the moonlight. Its tongue flicks in and out like a whisper. The guard doesn't even run. He just drops to his knees, and the serpent wraps around him, slowly, like it's hugging him. The sound is not something you'll ever forget. You stay in that tree all night, teeth chattering, trying not to cry or vomit or do both at once. By dawn, the clearing is empty again. Just bones, just silence. You climb down and run back to the compound. You don't care who sees. You pack the dried bread you hid, the sliver of flint, the useless sharp rock. You don't have a plan. Only one thought. Away. It turns out that the compound isn't as well guarded as you thought. Maybe they don't expect escape because no one's ever had the audacity to try. Or maybe, just maybe, the old man believes the forest will always bring his property back. You stagger down a slope, across tangled roots, following the memory of starlight on the water. You think there's a river somewhere, a path out, somewhere the serpent doesn't go. You're wrong, but you're also faster now, and more desperate, and just maybe, lucky. You don't remember when you stopped running, just that your legs gave out near a crumbled embankment beside a shallow stream. Your hands are scraped, your feet blistered, and your brain's doing that lovely thing where it replays the worst few minutes of your life on loop, complete with sound effects. You think the serpent's gone? You hope the serpent's gone, but hope is a luxury, and you're broke. You sit in the mud, trembling, your clothes torn and half your supplies scattered in the rush. The bread's soaked. The monkey, if he even survived the wreck, is definitely off living his best jungle life now. You're alone, but alive. You follow the stream, praying it leads somewhere civilized, or at least somewhere not full of giant, man-eating reptiles. The terrain flattens after a while, and you start seeing signs of human life again. Broken pots, burnt-out torches, a rope tied to a stump. Maybe another camp once existed here. And then, as if summoned by sheer narrative luck, you hear the lap of waves, salt air, the sea. You stagger through the last of the brush and find a cove. Tucked into it, half hidden by reeds, is a long, narrow boat, light enough to push, sturdy enough to float. You look around for the owner. Nothing. No footprints, no tools, no ominous blood trails this time. So naturally, you do the most reasonable thing. You steal the boat. Now, history fact time. Boats like these, small, swift, carved from a single trunk, were common in ancient river and coastal trade routes. Known as dugouts, they were used for everything from fishing to piracy. They weren't meant for deep-sea travel. But hey, desperate times. You shove it into the water and leap in, using a makeshift paddle to push off. The current grabs you immediately. It's not exactly sailing, but it's movement. And movement means distance, from that compound, that forest, that cold-eyed old man. You're free, until you remember. You have no idea where you are. No food, no map, no stars visible through the fog rolling in. You float for what might be days, or hours, or one very long hallucination. The sun rises, sets. You drift in and out of sleep, jaw aching from clenching it, your throat too dry for curses. And then, just as you're ready to accept your fate as ocean furniture, a sail appears on the horizon. You wave your arms weakly. It gets closer and closer, and wow, it's not full of pirates this time. A miracle. A large merchant vessel pulls alongside you. Crew members peering down with expressions that scream, "Who is this sea-rotted raisin?" They toss down a rope. You barely have the strength to grab it. Someone hauls you up. Another presses a water skin to your lips. You cough, sputter, chug, and just like that, you're back among people. This ship is cleaner, calmer, and more professionally run than the last. The crew wears loose cotton shirts dyed in reds and blues. They speak a dialect you mostly understand. Best of all, they don't chain you up the second you speak, which, let's be honest, is a refreshing change. They ask your name. You give it. They ask where you're from. You lie. And when they ask how you ended up adrift in a tiny boat with no supplies, you do what all great sailors do in moments like this. You cough loudly and pretend to fall asleep. The ship's captain, a broad-shouldered man with a silver beard and a collection of rings too extravagant to be practical, offers you shelter. He's seen enough odd things on the sea to accept that escaped from forest serpent cult might not even crack the top 5. You're given a bunk, some dried meat, and, luxury of luxuries, a bath. It takes 3 buckets of hot water and a team effort to get you looking vaguely human again. You even find a spare tunic in the laundry. It's 3 sizes too big. But you cinch it with rope and call it fashion. Fun fringe fact. In several ancient maritime cultures, gifting clothes to castaways was not just kind. It was a spiritual duty. To rescue someone from the sea was to participate in a divine act. You begin to think this captain may have a little divinity in him. By the 3rd day, you're eating at the officer's table, sharing slightly more believable versions of your ordeal. Well, you say casually, I was attacked by beasts and narrowly escaped through the jungle. You skip the part where a 30-foot reptile tried to hug you to death. Historians still argue, you add, as if narrating a bedtime lecture, whether such creatures were real or simply allegorical. The crew nods. They've all heard tales like yours before. Sailors whisper of krakens, haunted whirlpools, and islands that vanish at sunrise. No one laughs. No one doubts. The sea has rules and exceptions. Eventually, the ship makes landfall on a quiet isle for fresh water and supplies. It's lush, green, and blessedly snake-free. You disembark with a few of the crew to stretch your legs and find fruit. That's when you hear it, A low whoomp from the trees. Then another. And then the sky darkens. Your first thought is storm. Your second is, oh no, not again. Because descending from the heavens is a pair of enormous shadows, each casting wings wider than sails. Rocks. Yes, rocks. Again. These birds, legendary and very real in your life, unfortunately, circle above, drawn by movement or scent or maybe just the divine comedy of your luck. Their feathers are midnight black. Their talons could rip a cow in half. You barely have time to shout before they land, one shaking the very ground with its arrival. You and the crew scatter. You trip over a root and roll behind a tree trunk, heart racing. One of the sailors shrieks, only to be snatched mid-sentence by a rock and carried skyward, legs kicking. The others flee toward the ship. You follow, sprinting harder than you ever have. You don't even bother looking back. The rocks, perhaps satisfied with one snack, let you go. Or maybe they just don't like the taste of bathwater and panic. You make it back to the ship, breathless, soaked in sweat. The captain is already shouting orders to raise anchor. As you sail away, you watch the island shrink behind you. Another near miss. Another rock sighting. You can't decide whether you're blessed or cursed. But you can decide one thing. Next time, maybe don't get off the boat. You're starting to think the universe has a personal vendetta against you. What started as a simple merchant voyage is now a checklist of every dangerous beast in existence. First pirates, then giant snakes, and now aerial doom birds. What's next? Cursed skeleton butlers? Still, life aboard the merchant ship continues. The crew recovers from the rock encounter with the kind of resigned weariness you'd expect from people who've spent too much time near Sinbad. The captain chuckles darkly and mutters something about sea luck. You try to laugh with him, but your nervous system is somewhere deep underwater, clutching a sponge and refusing to come back. You sail for several days without incident. That alone feels suspicious. The water is calm, the sky a pale, uninterrupted blue. Even the wind behaves itself. You get a little too used to the routine, helping with sails, sharing stories over roasted dates, sleeping on a hammock that doesn't try to kill you. So, of course, that's when it happens. One bright morning, the lookout shouts something. You squint toward the horizon. At first, you think it's a trick of the light, but no, there it is. Land. As the ship approaches the shore, you see strange white cliffs and dense trees with curling red leaves. The captain narrows his eyes and says they've never stopped here before. But the water's low, and the ship needs repairs. You dock. A small party is sent ashore to explore, and you, full of wildly misplaced optimism, volunteer. You and 3 sailors step onto the beach. The sand is warm, the air humid, and the forest ahead buzzes with insects the size of your thumbs. But it's oddly peaceful. That ends fast, because just 20 steps into the forest, you start seeing bones. Scattered, cracked, old, but unmistakably human. The sailors go quiet. You hear something rustle in the brush. Everyone freezes. Then a low, guttural groan rumbles through the trees. Not quite animal. Not quite natural. One sailor bolts. Another pulls a knife. The third, unfortunately, stands frozen. You grab his arm and shout, "Move!" And that's when they appear. Not monsters, not snakes, but people. Pale, stooped figures with empty eyes and tight, jerking limbs, dressed in rags. Their skin is mottled, their movements slow, but disturbingly synchronized. You recognize the look. You've seen it before. In the compound. This island isn't just dangerous. It's haunted. You all run! You don't ask questions. You don't try to understand. You just run. You make it back to the beach just as the captain is shouting to hoist the sail. The figures don't follow past the tree line, as if they can't. Back on the ship, everyone is shaken. You sit on a barrel, trying to get your heart out of your throat. One of the sailors mumbles something about jinn, spirits that dwell in unclean places. You've heard the stories, travelers who vanished on beautiful islands. Ships that drifted back empty. It makes too much sense. Historical fact. The concept of jinn long predates Islam. Rooted in pre-Islamic Arabian folklore, they were believed to inhabit deserts, ruins, and remote islands, sometimes helpful, more often not. And depending on the region, they could possess people, twist minds, or guard cursed treasures. You, unfortunately, may have just stepped onto one of their holiday homes. The ship veers away, hugging the coastline until the cliffs vanish from sight. And for a while, everything seems to settle again. You fall back into the rhythm of life on deck. You even start helping with the books. Turns out you're good with numbers when your life's not being threatened. Then, one evening, the lookout points to a dark smudge rising from the sea ahead. Another island. Small, rocky, ringed with jagged cliffs. Against your better judgment, the captain decides to anchor just offshore and wait for morning. You try to stay awake, but exhaustion tugs at you, and eventually you drift off. You awaken to shouting, smoke, and the smell. By all the gods, the smell, like something died, then died again out of spite. You stumble onto the deck to find half the crew looking toward shore. There, rising from the rocks, is a narrow cliff path that leads to a cave. A few sailors had gone ashore early. They're standing at the cave mouth, gesturing wildly. One of them holds up something sparkling. Diamonds? You hear the word and feel it in your bones. That glittering, familiar curse. You try to warn them, but your voice is drowned by the sudden rush of greedy excitement. The captain sends another group ashore, and once again, you, because you apparently never learn, go with them. The cave is larger than it looks from the sea. The floor is littered with stones, some dull, some glinting. Deeper in, you spot bodies, dozens, twisted, partially buried in dust. Some still clutching satchels bulging with gems, and the stench is overwhelming. One sailor vomits. Another bends down and begins scooping diamonds into a cloth. You hesitate. You remember this trick. You know this trick. Too late, because from the back of the cave comes a sound like shifting gravel, then silence, then skittering. And now you realize the real problem here isn't the smell. It's what causes it. Suddenly, something long, thin, and covered in hair darts across the wall. Not a serpent this time, something worse. Giant centipedes, each the size of a small dog, with pincers that gleam like obsidian. One of the sailors screams. You bolt for the entrance, diamonds bouncing behind you. You lose a sandal? You don't care. You dive into the surf, climb into the skiff, and don't stop rowing until your arms burn like they're on fire. Back on the ship, the captain hauls you aboard, eyes wide with horror. 2 men didn't make it back. He doesn't ask questions this time. He just orders the sails raised and tells everyone, no more landings. Good idea. You spend the next few days lying low, avoiding eye contact with shiny things. The sea, for all its dangers, seems downright friendly compared to caves full of diamond-guarding insect demons. And you wonder, quietly, why does treasure always seem to come with an aftertaste of doom? By now, you've decided that land is officially overrated. Islands, cursed, caves, infested, forests, filled with people-eating snakes and emotionally unavailable old men. The sea may be moody, but at least it doesn't pretend to be your friend before trying to digest you. So you stick to the ship. You sweep the decks. You eat the food, even when it's suspiciously crunchy. You help repair sails and listen to the sailors argue about whether water spirits can fall in love. You keep your stories short and your nightmares quieter. And then the rations start to run low. It's not dramatic at first. Just a few missing crates. A little less dried fish at each meal. But after a week, the cook starts getting creative. One morning you're served something that's technically soup but smells like rope. The captain gathers the crew and explains the situation. You need to resupply. Like it or not. Another island appears on the horizon. You don't even sigh this time. You just roll up your sleeves and prepare to meet your next bad decision. The ship anchors in a shallow bay. This one looks promising? No cliffs, no fog, just a white beach and a dense grove of trees. You go ashore with a small group. You carry a coil of rope and a sharpened stick you call backup. You're ready for anything. The forest is quiet. Too quiet. You and the others fan out, looking for fruit trees or anything edible. You wander a little farther than the rest, drawn by a strange scent. Sweet, sharp, almost like cinnamon and rot. You push through a thicket and emerge into a clearing, and there they are. The trees. Except these aren't ordinary trees. Each trunk is thick and short, more like a post. Their bark is dark, veined like stone, and hanging from their branches, huge, bulbous fruit with a strange sheen, like lacquered leather. You reach out to touch one. It twitches. You freeze. It twitches again, and then you hear it. A rustle, low and rhythmic. The ground beneath you shivers. The tree groans. And you realize that's not fruit, that's bait. Before you can move, the brush behind you explodes. Out comes something fast, low to the ground, long like a rope and wide like a nightmare. Another serpent, no legs, no mercy. And you, of course, are standing right in its designated drive-through. You stumble back, falling over your own feet. It slithers past, right toward the trees. And you see it now, the system, the mechanism, almost. The trees bear these fruit-like pods that somehow drip a scent into the wind. The scent lures animals, maybe even people. And the serpent, knowing the pattern, arrives on schedule. You are so tired of being on the menu. Let's detour into an actual historical tidbit for a moment, just to calm your nerves. Some ancient texts from Mesopotamia describe mythical groves where trees bore human heads or bleeding fruits. Scholars have debated whether these were allegories for sacrifice or hallucinations brought on by tropical diseases. You, however, are currently voting for very real danger. You don't run this time. You climb. One of the tree posts has low limbs, probably where the bait is usually tied. You scramble up, panting, your legs shaking. You wedge yourself between the branches just as the serpent coils below. It doesn't look up, it waits. Beneath you, the forest holds its breath. You realize then, this is a feeding grove, a system, not natural, constructed. Someone or something set this up long ago. The serpent isn't wild, it's trained. And these trees, they're part of the trap, engineered, cultivated, maybe even enchanted. Historians still argue. You whisper to yourself. Whether this story is metaphor or memory, you don't know how long you stay up there. Hours, maybe. Long enough for your legs to cramp and the light to fade. The serpent doesn't leave. It circles slowly, patient, like it knows you'll fall eventually. But you're stubborn. You're Sinbad, and you've survived worse than this. Eventually, you hear voices, your crewmates, calling your name. You risk a shout. They find you, laugh nervously when they see your tree perch, and pelt the serpent with rocks until it slides back into the brush, hissing like a broken kettle. You climb down, wobble a bit, and accept the shoulder someone offers. You don't speak until you're back at the boat. Then, as the crew prepares to leave the cursed grove, you mutter, "Let's never do that again. Back aboard." The captain wants answers. You tell him what you saw. The trees, the bait, the snake. He listens, then shakes his head. "We should have stayed hungry." You agree. The ship pulls away. The island fades into the mist, and you make a mental note. If the air smells like cinnamon and death, run. But as always, the sea has more plans. You wake in the middle of the night to shouting, again. The lookout's pointing west. Lights. Smoke. A fleet. But it's not a welcome party. It's pirates. You groan, loudly. These ones look even worse than the first group. Their ships are lean and fast, their sails blackened, not by design, but by fire. The merchant captain gives a single order. Run. And so you do. The crew works like madmen, hoisting every sail, dumping cargo to lighten the ship. The wind is with you, but the pirates are faster and armed. They fire a warning shot, an actual flaming arrow that sails past the stern and lands with a hiss in the water. Another shot hits the side. Wood splinters. Someone screams. You're given a choice: stay and fight, or jump. And after everything you've been through, serpents, centipedes, rocks, suspicious soup, you do the only thing that makes sense. You jump into the sea. Again, you hit the water hard. It smacks the air out of your lungs, swallows your scream, and wraps around you like cold silk laced with panic. For a moment, there's only chaos, bubbles, limbs, salt, and that eerie silence that follows an impulsive escape plan. When you surface, coughing and blinking seawater, the pirate ship is already veering toward the merchant vessel. You float between them, utterly insignificant, a drifting cork in a clash of sails and steel. You kick weakly, aiming away from both ships. Arrows hiss overhead. You're not the target, but let's face it, accuracy hasn't been anyone's strength today. You swim until your arms burn and the shouts grow faint. Eventually, both ships fade into the fog. You're alone again, lost at sea, clinging to a chunk of driftwood that smells like burnt resin and regret. Let's slow things down with a fact, shall we? Ancient sailors often tied empty jars under their cloaks to act as primitive life vests. You, on the other hand, have a stick and sheer willpower. Not quite the same. Hours pass, maybe more. The sun plays peekaboo through scattered clouds. You bob in and out of consciousness, counting each breath like it might be your last. Just when you start muttering half-remembered prayers to every god in every pantheon, your feet bump something solid. You look down. Sand? You're drifting onto a beach. You crawl out of the surf like a waterlogged carpet, collapse face first, and let the sun bake you like a poorly handled pastry. You have no idea where you are, but for the first time in days, you're not on a cursed boat, in a cursed forest, or fighting cursed insects. So you nap, a full body, not even dreaming horizontal coma. When you wake, the tide has pulled back, revealing a rocky shoreline and a few crabs giving you judgmental side eyes. Your mouth feels like it's stuffed with wool and chalk. You force yourself to your feet and stumble inland. You find trees, edible-looking fruit, fresh water, and, miracle of miracles, a faint footpath carved into the earth. Not new, but not ancient either. You follow it, for hours. Eventually, it splits. One path curves toward a hill with smoke curling behind it. The other vanishes into thick undergrowth. You choose the smoke. Fire means people, people mean food, shelter, possibly slavery again. But hey, you'll cross that bridge when you're shackled to it. The path leads to a small camp nestled in a clearing. Tents, fire pit, crates, bedrolls, and, standing near the fire, 3 men dressed in fine merchant robes, arguing over the weight of a sack filled with, you guessed it, gems. You hesitate at the tree line. One of them notices you. He shouts. The others draw knives. You raise your hands, very slowly, and stumble forward muttering the universal language of desperation. Not a threat, very tired, maybe dying. They lower their weapons. Just a little. Turns out, they're merchants. Diamond traders. To be specific, they're camping on the edge of a legendary diamond valley. No one goes in without a plan. Or a few goats, or some very sturdy nerves. You nod, trying to look like you understand anything about what they're saying. And then you notice it. The meat, strips of it, laid out. salted and tied with string. Some tossed into the valley below. A bell rings in your brain. You know this trick, because back in your second voyage, or was it the third, you heard this exact method from a madman in a bar. You were probably tipsy, covered in bruises, and thought it was nonsense. But it's real. The diamond trick. Here's how it works. Vultures love meat. Vultures also love shiny things. The merchants toss meat into the diamond-filled valley below. Vultures swoop down, grab the meat and the diamond stuck to it, and fly off. The birds land further uphill, away from the valley's dangers, where it's easier to collect the loot. It's absurd and brilliant, and your one chance. So, naturally, you ask for a piece of meat. The traders eye you warily. You explain you've done this before. Part truth, part bluff. After a pause, one hands you a greasy slab and says, "Tie it to yourself if you're brave." You hesitate, laugh nervously, then do exactly that. You strap the meat across your back, using frayed rope and sheer stupidity. You march to the edge of the valley, wave at the traders, and throw yourself down the slope. Why? Because nothing about your life is normal anymore. You roll, bounce, and land in a heap of thorns and dust. The air here is dry and smells faintly of sulfur. Around you, diamonds, everywhere, scattered like gravel. You reach for one, hold it up. It catches the sun like fire, and then the vultures come. At first, just one, then three, then a dozen. Huge black-winged shadows circle above. One dives, another follows. You flinch as talons rake your tunic, tug at the meat, lift you slightly, and then, in a moment that is both horrifying and hysterical, you are airborne. Not far, not high, but enough to question every life decision that brought you here. You crash back down outside the valley, covered in dust and feathers and diamond-encrusted meat. The merchants burst into applause. You can barely breathe. One of them helps you up. Another peels a diamond off your back and whistles. You've done it. You've gamed the system. You're rich, again, and for once, nobody tries to stab you for it. Your legs wobble like soggy noodles as you sit beside the campfire, still crusted in meat juice and bird feathers. One of the merchants hands you a water skin. Another presses a warm flatbread into your palm, smeared with honey and dusted with something citrusy. You eat, you drink, you don't even taste it. Just inhale everything like a starving dog at a banquet. The fire crackles. The merchants chatter. They're arguing over how to divide the diamonds glued to the meat that was strapped to your back. You don't care. You're not greedy this time. You just want to survive. But survival comes with a twist. You learn that this place isn't just some remote diamond valley. It's cursed. Of course it is. They call it the Valley of Shrieking Bones. Why? Because deep in the night, when the wind blows just right, you hear voices, screams, cries from the gorge. Legends say it's the souls of those who came for diamonds and stayed forever, eaten by the creatures that live there. Or the spirits of vultures who once gorged themselves on flesh and grew smarter. One of the merchants even swears he saw a bird dragging a skull. You pretend not to care, but you do. Sleep that night is hard. You lie under the stars, a diamond clenched in one fist and a dagger in the other. The wind howls, leaves rustle. Once, you think you hear a whisper that isn't yours. A syllable like Sinbad, stretched thin over the hills. But morning comes, and with it, an opportunity. The traders offer you a deal. Help them haul the latest load of diamonds down the coast, and they'll split the profits. Not evenly, of course. They're merchants, but they'll give you enough to buy a new ship, hire a crew, and never look back. You accept, because let's face it, you're too stubborn to stop. The journey south is long but uneventful. You trade your filthy tunic for robes. Your feather-strewn hair is combed. You learn the names of the men. Nasir, a loudmouth with too many rings. Farid, quiet and cautious, and Rafik, who smells like mint and lies for fun. Together, you make a fortune. The sale is done at a coastal port where diamonds are worth their weight in secrets. Gold changes hands, ledgers are stamped. You walk away with a pouch so heavy it nearly rips through your belt. And now, you're free. You stand on the dock with the sea whispering promises beside you. Ships bob gently on the tide, sails like folded wings. One in particular catches your eye. Slim, fast, painted blue with silver trim. The captain's dead. Something about a duel over a goose. The crew's willing to follow someone new. So you do the sensible thing. You buy the ship. Rename it Second Wind, because that's what this is. A second chance. You spend a few weeks outfitting the vessel. New sails, stronger ropes, extra cargo space, a few hidden compartments. You've learned your lesson about trust. And then, you hire a crew. Carefully. One by one. Sailors who owe you favors. A cook who once beat you at dice but still fed you after. A navigator with one eye and no fear. A boy who wants adventure, even if he thinks your name is Sinbad. Close enough. And then you sail into open water with no clear destination, just a whisper in your chest and a wind in your teeth. But fate, fickle, relentless, always watching, has one more twist for you. A storm hits. Violent. Sudden. The kind that turns the sky into a boiling bruise. Waves crash. Sailors scream. Lightning carves the heavens open. You bark orders. Tie knots. Pull canvas until your fingers bleed. But it's not enough. The ship groans. The rudder snaps. And then, crack! The mast splits in half like a dry bone. You're thrown. Hard. And for the second time in your life, the sea claims you. But not for long. You wake on a beach. Again. This time. The sand is black. The air smells like cinnamon and ash. And rising before you, just beyond a grove of twisted trees, is something impossible. A palace. But not just any palace. It gleams in the sun. Walls of obsidian. Domes of sapphire. And carved into the stone above the gate. Your name. Not Sinbad, your real name. A name only you and the stars remember. You don't move. You just stare. Because whatever this is, it's not coincidence. It's an invitation. And you're too deep into this madness to say no. You approach the obsidian palace with the slow, wary gait of a man who's seen too much and trusts too little, even when the stone itself glitters like night-frozen solid. The air grows strangely still the closer you get, thick with something ancient. Not danger exactly, just a tension. The gate swings open without a sound. No guards, no locks, just that impossible engraving of your name above it, glowing faintly like embered script. You step inside, the floor is polished to a mirror. You see your own reflection, gaunt, sunburnt, wide-eyed, and barely recognize it. But there's no time to reflect on your reflection, because the hallway opens into a chamber so vast and quiet it feels like stepping into a forgotten dream. Columns rise like petrified lightning. Banners hang with symbols you don't recognize. Serpents coiled around moons. Ships swallowed by birds. A single eye that seems to follow you. Then you hear the voice, soft, feminine, ancient. Welcome, Sinbad. You freeze. The voice seems to come from everywhere. The walls, the floor, the very air. I've watched your voyages. It says, your trials, your cleverness, your foolishness. A woman steps into view. She wears robes the color of twilight, embroidered with constellations that shift when she moves. Her skin glows faintly gold. Her eyes? Not eyes at all, just stars. Tiny galaxies where her pupils should be. You've seen monsters, serpents, rocks, pirates, cursed trees. But this is something else. Something not human. Who are you? You ask, your voice hoarse. I am the one who sees, she says. The watcher of voyagers, the binder of fates, the patron of paths. Cool, you whisper, because what else do you say to a celestial being? She smiles. You are not here by accident. Yeah, no kidding. She leads you to a low marble seat and offers a bowl of fruit. It shifts color as you stare. You pretend to nibble. You mostly try not to faint. Sinbad, she continues. Few mortals survive 5 voyages. Fewer still attract the attention of them. Them? The ones who feed off story. The old things that dwell in maps long burned and names long swallowed by the sea. Oh, good. Story-eating cosmic entities? Of course. She explains slowly, as if unwrapping a puzzle in your mind, that every journey you've taken has nudged you closer to a pattern. Not by coincidence, not by chance, but design. Historians still argue, she says, whether your tales are fact or fable. What they never ask is why you keep surviving. She leans in. Would you like to know? You hesitate, nod. She reaches into her robe and pulls out a small, black stone. It pulses faintly. She holds it out. This is your anchor, she says. The reason the sea keeps giving you back. The reason monsters hesitate. The reason the air remembers your name. You stare at the stone. Then her. Then back again. Cool, you whisper. Again. Because it's become your coping mechanism. Then something changes. The palace rumbles. Far away, a bell tolls. The watcher frowns. They've found you again. She drops the stone into your hand. Run. Wait, what? Go through the west gate. Don't look back. But she's already gone. The chamber begins to darken. The air thickens. The banners twist. The columns seem to lean toward you like curious beasts. You run! The west gate is smaller, arched, shaped like the hull of a ship. As you sprint through, the world bends, literally. The sky splits open, and you're no longer in the palace. You're somewhere else. You land hard on dusty stone. Desert, sun, wind, sand, and just ahead, tents, a bustling market. People shouting, donkeys braying, spices in the air. You made it. Again, you lie there for a moment, palm still clutching the black stone. It hums faintly. Then you laugh. A dry, cracked laugh that turns heads. Someone offers you water. Another presses a coin into your hand. You don't ask why. You walk through the bazaar in a daze. And then you stop. A storyteller sits in the shade of a carpeted stall, weaving tales for children. She speaks of a sailor, cursed and clever, who outwits monsters and rides birds and sleeps in trees. The kids laugh. One shouts, "That's not real!" The storyteller smiles and says, "Real or not, the sea remembers him." You grin, because you know something they don't. The sea does more than remember. It follows. You blend into the crowd, though you're still sticky with sand and mystery. Your hands tremble slightly as you tuck the black stone into your sash, feeling its pulse like a hidden heartbeat. It's warm, too warm for mere rock. You don't understand what it is. Not really. But something in your gut tells you it has its own memory. And now, it carries yours. The market is alive with sound and scent. Pomegranates split open like secrets. Minstrels strum melodies half as old as you feel. A man juggles scorpions for copper coins. And the people, they move with purpose, with rhythm, with life. But you don't feel like one of them. Not anymore. You're a shadow walking in daylight. Still, your stomach growls. Your throat burns. And you spot a food stall manned by a boy with one eye and a crooked grin. You toss him a coin you don't remember having. "Meat or sweet?" he asks. You blink. "Yes." He chuckles and hands you both, a skewer of lamb, charred and dripping, and a square of honey cake wrapped in a fig leaf. As you eat, you listen. The merchants whisper rumors like prayers. A flying ship was spotted over the dunes. A city vanished beneath a glassy lake. A woman who knows the name of every star has been seen wandering the southern wastes. You chew slower. It's not just coincidence anymore. It's convergence. You leave the market with your hood up, heading toward the edge of town where the caravans gather. You need to keep moving. Every time you stay in one place too long, they come. The shadows that flicker too fast. The footsteps that echo wrong. The dreams that end with teeth. As the sun sets, painting the dunes in copper and violet, you join a group of traders heading west. They welcome you easily. Another dusty face. Another man with a story behind his eyes. They don't ask questions. You don't offer answers. That night, under a sky as wide as memory, you lie beside the fire and trace the constellations the Watcher once wore across her sleeves. You see the ship-shaped cluster that led you to the Serpent's Island, the twin stars of the Cursed Brothers, the crooked crown of the Rock's Mountain. It's all written above you. It always has been. A soft cough draws your attention. The eldest trader, a man with braided beard and cataract eyes, sits beside you. He smells of myrrh and old maps. "You've been far," he says. You nod slowly. He chuckles. Some men carry dust in their boots. You carry oceans. You glance at your pack. The black stone is quiet. "For now," he continues. "I once met a man who spoke like you, always looking sideways, always listening to things no one else could hear. You know what he told me?" You shake your head. He said the world's made of stories. Some we tell, some we walk, and some... His voice drops to a whisper. Some we escape. You meet his gaze. Did he escape? The old man smiles sadly. He thought so, until the stories caught up. The fire pops, sending a shower of sparks into the dark. The trader rises, brushing sand from his knees. "Sleep if you can, seaman," he says. "Morning always comes faster than fear." You do not sleep. Instead, you cradle the black stone and think of the things you've seen. The impossible beasts, the golden palace, the woman with stars in her eyes, and always, always the sea. It still calls you, even here, surrounded by sand. You can hear it, in the wind, in your blood, in the hollow between heartbeats. You remember your 5th voyage, the storm, the shattered mast, the island that breathed like a beast, the mirrors that showed not your reflection, but your possibilities. One showed you crowned and cruel. One showed you broken and forgotten. One showed you dead, smiling. You'd shattered that one with a stone. Now you wonder what would have happened if you hadn't. The caravan travels at dawn, silent and slow like ghosts over amber dunes. You ride beside the old trader, his stories drifting through the dust. He tells you of cities that worship the sun until it burns them, of islands that move, of bells that toll beneath the earth. You add each tale to the growing library in your mind. You don't know which stories are true anymore. Maybe all of them, maybe none. But you know yours isn't over. Not yet. That night, you camp near a black obelisk half buried in sand. It hums. No one speaks of it. No one touches it. But they don't sleep near it, either. Except you, because the stone in your sash vibrates when you pass it. Because the stars overhead seem to twist, slightly, around it. Because the voice returns, not aloud, not quite, just inside your bones. It whispers, 6. You jolt upright. The caravan sleeps. The wind is still. But something has begun. Your 6th voyage? No, something older. Something that was waiting before your first breath. You touch the black stone. It's cold now, and heavy, and hungry. You wake at first light, though you hadn't truly slept. The desert is quiet, but not still. You feel it shifting beneath your feet, as if the land itself is breathing, holding its breath for what comes next. The caravan is breaking camp. Camels groan. Coffee boils in blackened kettles. The old trader with the cataract eyes gives you a look, a quiet nod, like he knows something he doesn't want to admit. You mount your camel and ride westward. Sand gives way to stone, stone to salt flats. The sky above is a pale silver, washed out like old parchment. Time feels thin here. By dusk, the traders stop at the edge of a ravine where winds howl through jagged rock like flutes played by ghosts. No one wants to cross, but you do. You feel it calling again, pulling, like a thread tugged from your ribs. You leave your mount behind and descend the stone path. Your sandals scrape ancient etchings carved into the cliffs, stars, waves, and eyes. So many eyes. Halfway down, the world begins to blur. Not your vision. Reality. You step on solid ground, but it gives like cloth. The sun flickers. Shadows twist at wrong angles. And then, suddenly, you're not in the ravine anymore. You're in a room. It's round, windowless, carved from smooth black basalt. In the center is a pool, circular, glassy, filled not with water, but starlight. Tiny galaxies swirl within. On the far wall, 6 mirrors stand. You recognize them. But one more has joined, a 7th. You approach. Each mirror flickers as you pass. You see glimpses, other versions of you. One is old and blind, speaking stories to children in a ruined harbor town. Another wears armor of coral and leads an army of fish-eyed men through storm-torn seas. Another is chained, laughing, blood on his lips. Another is you, unchanged, holding a child. Her eyes are your mother's. Another is ash. Another is empty. But the 7th. You stop before it. It shows no reflection. Not you, not anything. Just darkness. You reach toward it, and your fingers meet stone. Suddenly the walls crack with light. Runes flare up the columns. The pool begins to boil, and a voice fills the chamber. Not the whisper you've heard. No, this one is older. It speaks not to your ears, but to your history. You have walked far, voyager. You open your mouth, no sound comes. You have crossed salt and sand, teeth and time. Yet you are no closer. Closer to what? To yourself. The mirrors vanish. The pool fades. The room peels apart like petals folding inward. You fall and land in a ship. Your ship, but not the one you remember. This one is made of bone and glass. Its sails shimmer like wings of flies. Its crew is silent, shadowy shapes in cloaks that never stop moving. You are not steering. You stand at the prow, watching a sea you've never seen. It is silver, flat, infinite, and on the horizon, a tower, tall as the sky, black as regret. It calls to you. You do not ask why. You only sail. Hours pass, or days. Time coils strangely here. Your hands tremble, but you do not tire. Finally, the ship reaches a shore made of shattered hourglasses. The sand beneath your feet bleeds light. You walk alone. The tower rises before you. No doors, no windows, just a single name carved into its base. Your name, not the one you were born with, the one you gave up, the one you became. You place your hand on it, and the stone melts. The tower opens. Inside, a staircase of light. You climb, higher and higher, past echoes of your own voice, past storms made of your memories, past a room where all the versions of you, the crowned, the cursed, the quiet, sit around a table. They don't see you. You pass. At the top, a final room. Empty, except for a book. Bound in salt-stained leather, its cover bears the symbol carved into your left shoulder. Something you saw once, long ago, on an island that shouldn't have existed. You open it. The pages are blank. And then they begin to write themselves. This is the story of the one who wandered, who lost and found and lost again, who did not seek a throne, or a name, or glory, only understanding. You turn the page, your face stares back at you, drawn in sand and ink. A final line appears beneath. The voyage continues, and then the tower begins to collapse. But you don't fall. You float back into your body, back into the ravine. The traders are above, calling your name. They say you vanished for an hour. You say nothing. You climb up, rejoin the caravan. That night, by the fire, you take out the black stone. It's different now. No longer humming. It pulses like a heartbeat. Your heartbeat. And for the first time, you understand. You are not carrying it. It is carrying you. The wind howls like a wolf over the barren island cliffs as you and the handful of survivors huddle by a driftwood fire. The ship now a bitter memory. Bellies rumbling and patience thin. You're forced to scout for any sign of food or fresh water. It's in one of these miserable searches that you stumble upon something both absurd and unsettling. A vast stone egg, easily taller than a grown man and warm to the touch. You blink. Surely not. But yes, you've been here before. This is another rock nesting ground. And just like last time, someone suggests, maybe we can crack it open, eat the chick, which is, of course, a terrible idea. You loudly oppose it, but you're outvoted. So the group hammers away at the egg, and by nightfall, the top cracks open, releasing the smell of raw yolk and dragon sweat. As your unlucky companions drag out a half-formed, feathery creature, you feel the air change, a vibration, like thunder muttering beneath the ground. A giant shadow passes overhead. You freeze. The parent rock has returned. And it is not amused. With a scream that could shatter marble, it dives, talons outstretched like scimitars. Chaos erupts. The group scatters, some diving into the brush, others heading back to the beach. You dash toward a cluster of rocks, heart punching your ribs. The bird crashes down behind you, sending sand and bodies flying. You look back just long enough to see two of your companions disappear into its beak. It's brutal, quick, and very much your cue to keep running. As you stumble downhill, another rock swoops in, this one even larger. A second parent. Because of course they come in pairs. You curse the egg-eaters under your breath, now very much the egg sandwich yourselves. You throw yourself off a ledge, tumble down a slope, and find yourself face first in the mouth of a narrow cave. And just like that, you're underground. It's dark, cramped, and weirdly moist. But at least the birds can't reach you here. You crawl until daylight vanishes behind you, until the screams fade, and until your breath slows from panic to exhaustion. Your knees are shredded, but you're alive. When you finally emerge from the cave, maybe hours later, maybe longer, you're alone again. The beach is deserted. No birds, no friends, just feathers, broken gear, and enormous footprints pressed into the sand like fossilized curses. You spend the next few days wandering the island's interior, eating bitter berries and trying not to hallucinate. You even find a freshwater spring, its edges marked with strange runes, ancient Arabic script that translates roughly to, "Drink if you must, but pay your price." Poetic, but unhelpful. There's a moment when you wonder, why do I always survive these things? Historians still argue whether Sinbad's improbable luck represents divine favor or just narrative convenience. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's something darker. Maybe the sea itself won't let you die because it enjoys your suffering too much. Eventually, you construct a raft from the remnants of your ship and the bones of what you hope were not your shipmates. You push off, palms blistered, feet infected, and your soul somewhere between apathy and madness. The ocean, as always, greets you with deceptive calm. The days blur together. Sunrise, storm, hunger, and hallucination. You talk to your oar. You name it Steve. Steve is a very bad conversationalist. But Steve is loyal. One morning, as you drift half asleep, a strange thing happens. A fleet of small fishing boats surrounds you. Not pirates, not monsters, just regular, confused fishermen who drag you aboard and pour water over your cracked lips. They speak a dialect you barely recognize. One man says, "You're lucky we found you. You were about to drift into the maelstrom. You blink. The what now? Turns out, the island you escaped wasn't just any speck on the map. It's known in maritime legends as Ghazali's Teeth, one of the most dangerous stretches of sea in the known world, often avoided even by experienced sailors. The eggs? Likely part of a deliberate rock breeding ground. Maybe even the birds were placed there by ancient traders to deter competitors. A fringe theory suggests this island was part of an old Phoenician deterrent system. Not exactly a tourist destination. As you drift back to civilization with these kind strangers, you wonder how you'll spin this story. Maybe this time you won't. Maybe this time you'll stay quiet. Maybe, but of course, you don't stay quiet. You never do. Once returned to Basra, with sun-bleached skin and salt still crusting your hair, you find yourself once again reclining in your familiar garden, surrounded by sweet dates, chilled wine, and the attentive ears of those who have never tasted the terror of a giant bird's claws or the stench of desperation on a splintered raft. You tell them your tale, perhaps a little more polished, a little more paced, but still grounded in the shuddering truth of what you survived. You raise a cup, toasting your continued existence. They laugh, some gasp. One faint-hearted merchant nearly drops his goblet at the mention of the rock's shriek. And by the end of your story, your purse is heavier with gifts. Your belly is full, and your soul is a little lighter. But later, when the guests leave and the garden falls into shadow, your thoughts return to the dark cave, to the sharp, silent hours between terror and rescue. You remember the scent of scorched feathers and the strange, silent moment when you realized you were the last one left. You've survived again. That's what matters. Until the dreams come, they begin subtly. A rush of wind, a screech overhead, the blinding white of outstretched wings. But they worsen. You find yourself waking drenched in sweat, clutching the sheets like a man still clinging to driftwood, even in luxury. Fear follows you like a ghost. Your friends call it Sinbad's curse, though they say it with affection, half in jest. You try to live a quiet life after that. You even consider marriage. There's a tailor's daughter with kind eyes and a quiet laugh who brings you almonds wrapped in silk. For a time, you think, perhaps I'm done with voyages. Perhaps I've earned my rest. But you aren't, because one day a letter arrives. It's from a caliph's vizier, an old friend from your youthful adventures. He writes, Sinbad, I have come upon a rare map, one drawn in the margins of a forgotten manuscript. It speaks of an island that bleeds gold from its cliffs and a people who never age. I need someone mad enough to seek it. You know what you should do. You should burn the letter, walk to the market, marry the girl, build a house far from the sea. But you don't. You go to the docks instead. You look out at the water. You know this isn't just a story anymore. It's you. This is who you are. And so, the next morning, you load a fresh satchel, bid farewell to your servants, and leave a note for the girl with the almonds. You promise to return. You always promise to return. And thus begins your fifth voyage. Because Sinbad the Sailor may be cursed, but he's also incapable of saying no to the whisper of the sea. You set sail once more. Not with the same crew. Most from your earlier journeys now steer clear of your name. Whispering of ill luck. No, these men are new, young, eager, and still green. They smile too often and joke too loudly. But they don't know what you know, and you don't tell them. Your ship is smaller this time. Sleek. Fast. Built for secrets, not for trade. The map from the vizier is tucked safely into your satchel, its ink still smelling faintly of cloves and smoke. It shows an island far south of the usual routes, where the currents twist like serpents and the stars above are unfamiliar. You follow them anyway. Weeks pass. The seas are strangely calm. The men grow lazy, but you, ever vigilant, sense something wrong in the quiet. One morning, just before dawn, the lookout cries out, "Land!" but not the lush, golden cliffs described in the map's margins. No, this island is wrong. The trees grow too tall, with leaves like blades. The air is thick, almost syrupy, and it hums, a sound beneath sound. Still, you dock. You must. You and a small group go ashore, blades drawn, boots sinking into moss that glows faintly underfoot. The silence grows oppressive. No birds, no wind, just that hum. Then you see them. Statues. Hundreds of them. Men, women, even beasts, frozen mid-scream, scattered among the trees, their features too lifelike, too recent. And in the center of it all, a temple. It pulses with golden light, just as the map promised. The men beg you to leave. One drops to his knees, whispering prayers in a tongue you don't recognize. But you fool that you are, step forward. Inside the temple, you find the source, a golden idol. Its eyes burn with amber fire, and at its feet, treasures enough to ransom kingdoms, jewels as big as fists, chalices of sapphire, a crown carved from moonstone. You take nothing, because something inside you knows. This is a place meant to be seen, not touched. You leave with only a sketch, and you return to the ship in silence. But one man lingers, the youngest, a deckhand named Ishak. He slips back into the trees when no one notices. He returns carrying a ruby the size of a pigeon's egg. By the time you set sail again, the hum has grown louder. By nightfall, Ishak is gone. In his hammock, only dust. The next day, another vanishes. And the next. By the time the sea turns calm again, half your crew has disappeared. No bodies, no blood, just absence. You throw the map overboard, you burn the sketch. When you finally return to Basra, your ship eerily empty, your voice hoarse from sleepless nights. No one believes you. They call it a sailor's fever dream. The temple of dust, the golden hum, the vanishing crew. You don't care. You plant your feet firmly on dry land. And this time, you swear, truly, finally, swear, you are done with voyages. But even as you say it, you know it isn't true. The sea has marked you, and it always calls you back. You live quietly for a time. A modest home, a walled garden, the sound of children laughing in the street. You grow herbs, drink tea in the morning, and every night, you tell yourself the sea is behind you. But one day, a letter arrives. The seal is old, wax cracked, ring mark unfamiliar, but the script is unmistakable. It's your brother's hand. You didn't even know he was alive. He writes of a crew lost beyond the horn of the moon, a ghost ship seen drifting just above the water, silent and unmanned. A merchant he met swore it was your vessel. Your vessel, thought sunk 2 voyages ago. He begs you to come. You don't answer the letter, but you pack anyway. Soon you're aboard a junk built in Canton, sturdy and thick-ribbed. Your crew this time are scholars, mystics, and one blind cook who hums to himself while grinding powders. You bring no weapons, only ink, scrolls, and strange artifacts acquired in old markets. The sea is colder this time, and the stars, again, are unfamiliar. On the 12th night, the fog thickens. Then, from the mists, sails, but they do not flutter. They hang limp, despite the wind, rotted canvas. Masts made of bones lashed together with twine and salt-stained hair. You've found it, your ship, but changed. No crew walk the deck. No lamps glow from within. Just a pulsing blue flame atop the helm. And the air, stale, old, full of whispers. You and 2 others board her. Everything is where it was. The knife you lost under the table. A wooden cup still holding the outline of dried wine. Even your logbook, open to a blank page. But there are things that do not belong. Salt crystals shaped like teeth in the cargo hold. Sooty prints of 3-toed feet leading up the mast. Then stopping mid-air. Your companions grow uneasy. One begins to speak backward. The other bleeds from his ears when the flame flickers. You find your brother in the brig, or what's left of him. Not a body, a shadow. Flat, moving on the wall. He pleads with you, mouth open but soundless, to burn the ship. But the hull will not take fire, not by torch, not by alchemy, not even by lightning you summon from a captured storm in a jar. In desperation, you flood her. You speak the forbidden word the blind cook taught you. The sea rises. She groans. She sinks. And so do you. But you do not drown. You wake up days later on a beach of black sand, clothes torn, logbook clasped tight to your chest. In it, the page that was blank is now filled, with writing not your own. You never speak of it, but the whisper of that bone ship haunts you. And sometimes, when you dream, you see it still, drifting beneath the water, upside down, waiting. You live long after that last voyage. You grow white-haired and slower, and people call you the old sailor, then the mad one, then nothing at all. But one night, on the edge of sleep, a voice calls your name. Not aloud, not in dream, but from the marrow of your bones. You rise without lamp or staff. You step barefoot out of your door, and the street is gone. The garden, gone. Even the stars above you are strange once more. Twin moons, drifting red. A boat waits. It is small, bone white, carved from a single tusk of something too large for the world. Its sail is smoke, and the tiller is shaped like a serpent's tongue. You do not question it. You board. No wind guides you. No oar moves. But the boat sails forward, across a sea that reflects no stars. Eventually, you reach it. An island, entirely made of glass. Not sand, not earth, just one vast sheet, clear as the sky, curved like a bowl, and beneath it, trapped underfoot, every face you've ever met. There is the merchant who cheated you in Aden, the giant who offered wine and then death, the bird that carried you from the valley of snakes. Even your younger self, wild-eyed, laughing, unaware. They watch you. You walk for hours. At the island's center, a tower rises. Not tall, but narrow, sharp, like a needle stabbing up from the core of the world. You enter. Inside is a room of mirrors. Not one, thousands. Each one shows you something different. A path you didn't take, a voyage you refused, a kindness you ignored, a life that could have been. You do not cry. You do not flee. You approach the final mirror. It shows you now. Old, scarred, wiser, perhaps, but tired. And behind your reflection stands someone else. She is robed in midnight. Her eyes burn like suns behind veils. She is not woman, nor God, nor wind. She is the sea, given form. And she speaks. You have wandered far. Sinbad, you have taken what was not yours. You have left wreckage in your wake. But you have also endured. You have returned. And returned again. Few mortals ever find this place. Fewer still deserve to. She lifts one hand. Choose, she says. You turn. Behind you, a door has appeared. It opens onto a quiet street. Your home, your garden. A small boy waits there. He has your eyes. The other door, there is no other door. Only the boat, waiting still. Smoke sail fluttering. Serpent tongue tiller ready. One leads to peace. The other, one final voyage. You hesitate. And then, you smile. You thank her. You step aboard the boat once more. Because some sailors never stop sailing. And stories, like oceans, have no end. They just begin again.